Aloha Manga Club, chapter 1312 of Hajime no Ippo is out, and it is titled, I'm Not God. And once you get through this, you really understand that it's talking about the mindset of Richardo. But in the week that I've been gone, we missed the fact that Billy uses the Philly clam shell, which is very similar to the Detroit shell kind of thing. He got the arm hooking over like this, and he's looking like he's punching and swinging his arm. A little over exaggerated, but that's okay. So we open up this chapter, Billy swinging his arm, just like we see Mashiba do quite frequently. Ippo and Sendo say he's going, he's coming. The crowd is nervous, they're expectant. And Richardo and Billy are looking at each other. They're closing in the heart-pounding amazingness of what is about to happen is unfolding. Sendo looks like he's a kid ready for this amazing moment, but he's not truly ready because without any warning at all, Richardo swings and hits the Philly clamshell shoulder. He makes it so that our main boy, the one and only Billy, blocks it with his hand, much like we've seen Richardo do. And everyone's kind of blown away because this is not like Richardo. He never starts his matches with fire and intention. He's cautious and deliberate. And I think what's happening here is actually a misconstruing of the situation because Ippo, in his mind, says he couldn't successfully get any information like this. So he just went for it instead. And that's not necessarily true, as we'll see later on in the chapter. In fact, if anything, Richardo is feeling impatient. He's feeling this kind of just distrust and dislike about what's going on. And he's moving in because he wants to light this fire, keep the fire going that Sendo and the great Alfredo himself started. So we see this fight kind of go forward, and Alfredo is just pouring on the lefts. He's just jabbing away, and he pulls the trigger and fireworks explode out of the barrel. He's emptying the entire magazine right from the start, but no one has seen Richardo act like this before. And we start to get deeper into the mindset of the king, the god of the ring. Richardo says to himself, I can feel it cooling beneath my feet, the fire that those two painstakingly lit before. It's always like this. My matches never rise to the spectacle that was shown before. It proceeds according to my plan, and it ends according to my plan, and the audience gets to watch a harmonious fight as promised. But I cannot stand that. And one thing that I've really noticed when you take a deeper dive into other mentions of Richardo, while he is this undefeated god, it says that has this kind of wild side. If you take a look at the date fight, he unleashes almost a perfect death god mode, like the Metzidl mode that we saw. I can never pronounce that word properly from Alfredo. He has that inside of him. That's his original form, kind of a vicious, non-calculating boxer. He just happens to be so talented. But let's dive in further to this chapter. These punches, this barrage, this just monstrous amount of lefts does not affect Billy. And Billy responds with, you should know better. A real clamshell won't open up for something so measly. And Richardo responds with, perhaps an invitation then. And to me, that's really interesting. One thing that I want to point out, this could just be the translator's choice in what's being done here. But Richardo, I believe, is speaking English, which is interesting because it shows that is genuinely at least bilingual, if not slightly more than that. It adds a little bit more depth to the character. I think that's kind of cool, actually. But that's just me making some fun alterations. Richardo says, an invitation then, what shall we do? Richardo jumps back in for the attack. He has more rapid fire lefts to the head, to the body. It's just a storm raking across the body of Billy. But none of them are landing. Billy is dodging, blocking with his arms, blocking with his shoulders. We get a little bit more depth into Billy and what the Philly style is. It's not that different from the Detroit style, which is more offensive. At least that's the thought behind it, is that the Detroit style is more offensive and the Philly is more like, again, that clamshell, that locking yourself up. And Sendo makes an erroneous statement, potentially. He says, this guy's a defensive fighter. Once you get a hit on him, he's going to crumble. But that's not what this style's really about. It's not a sturdy defense. We're building into what it's genuinely about. And Billy's saying, these lefts are worse than I expected. This is the first time I fought with somebody who's this good. He's undefeated for a reason, and he's probably won more than his fair share of matches just using that left hand, punching people into submission. But he asks, what will you do when your left doesn't work? You're just setting me up for a big shot. So let's see what happens when your left doesn't exist. And Billy leads him into throwing a right. He wants to throw a counter. But unfortunately, Richardo twists his head and the damage is negated. There's nothing coming from this shot, like straight up. Billy, it's a beautiful shot, by the way. It's just a cross punch and it looks beautiful. It looks very dynamic. But a horrible left counter is waiting in reply to that right monster hit. But Richardo twists his neck. He's excited. He says, that was incredible. A dizzyingly terrifying moment. I don't think anyone predicted this would be such a thrilling event. The arena's fire has risen in one shot like a great wave. But the fire calms down. They think that Richardo is just there getting ready to, win the match handily. He doesn't seem like he's really that into it. And he replies with, it seems like the more that I try, the dimmer these fires become. The waves sink back into the ocean. No matter what I do, am I boring? How can I make them burst with a fervor like this semi-final did? If I take one of those punches on purpose, will they be happy? Do I need to know? He says no. And it's an image of him sitting atop a column, a lonesome figure, a god, perhaps. He says no. That would be blasphemous, an unforgivable sin against boxing. Even though I train as if my life is on the line, even though I throw it all into each match, can I truly do nothing to resonate with the audience? Are my matches so boring? And that shows that he's not trying. He's genuinely giving the match as much as he can. He's training as hard as he can. He's making plans because that's how he wins. But he can see it all. He can feel it all. He can predict it all. So he never takes a punch. Is this truly a sin? But he responds with, I'm not a god. This body I fight with will still fall if I take a punch. Now, I think this has been misconstrued across the subreddit. Some people are saying it as, he's weak, he's going to take one hit and he's going to be down. No, he's saying that he's still immortal. He still bleeds. If he takes more than his fair share of punches, he will go down. And if you take a look at his original boxing style, that crazy mode that he has to be used to taking damage. Like, that's probably how he was raised, was taking inordinate amounts of damage to become an absolute beast. But he says, I can still feel pain. I can still feel fear. I can even lose. How am I supposed to shut all of that out and still proceed? I am just a man with courage and dignity of any other man. What am I to do? Why can none of you understand my machismo, my bravery, my definition of masculinity? And a lot of people see a problem with machismo being used. However, it is proper dialect for the 90s. So we'll choose to ignore that for now, even though it does have some very apparently negative connotations that I did not know. And Richardo says, what are you doing? Come, fight. With your strength, you should be able to drag it out of me. My inner strength, my utmost limits. And Richardo refuses to cede the initiative. He's aggressively seizing control of the match. He's throwing lefts. And his second is concerned. He says, were you affected by these semifinals that much? You need to calm down. But Billy is saying this as a chance. He says this is totally different from the recon work that he was doing before. He's fired up because it's a home fight. That's what Billy's thinking. But that's not true. He's so fired up because he wants to have a good match. He wants to feel his burning passion. And we see these 1-2s coming out from Richardo's hands. And Billy thinks to himself, I'll crush his right this time. And that is where this chapter ends. It is continuing next week in 13-13. And I am so excited because this fight will either show us more to the strengths of what Richardo is, or give us some kind of weakness inside of him, this kind of mentality. Because to me, it's looking like he's almost emotionally weak against what's happening. And that's something that I did not expect from the great Richardo himself. Billy is also interesting. He's in there dodging these lefts that so many people had problems with. He hasn't taken a single clean hit in the first round. Again, something that a lot of people have had problems with. And Richardo himself is acknowledging the fact that this man right here is potentially able to bring out his inner strength. And I'm just loving it. I'm loving that we're expanding these fights. And I think that they're all going to kind of fill back into Ippo. When we read other fights, matches in Ippo, they tie back into the overall character growth of, the main Makinoichi. Like, it all ties back into his growth, his character development. And I think getting to see the mentality of the greatest of the great fight against each other might light this fire once again. What I really want to see from this match is Richardo light the fire in himself. He wants to have this passion, this burning love of the sport. And I just want to see that really develop and grow. Let me know what you thought of this fight down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Hajime no Ippo related content, because that is coming. For everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohuli, and I will see you next video.